And it is recording. All right, Shannon, would you like to take it away?
I would like, in this smaller group, yes, I was so nervous, so this is so much better for me. So yes, I'm ready, I'm ready. Like Jesse said, I've been in criminal justice for over 10 years now. Most of it was in academia, so it was just kind of learning about it and kind of big picture things. And now I'm able to work with the county, and I'm seeing how it actually works boots on the ground. And it's a lot different from what you learn in school, from what you do actually out in the world. So I did some teaching for institutional corrections, which is jails and prisons, things like that. I've done a lot of law enforcement research with various different departments. Some I'm from Massachusetts, so a couple in Massachusetts, but mostly down here, CMPD, Union County, a couple different areas. And then I was lucky enough to get an internship at the Mecklenburg County Courthouse. So I've been able to dabble in a little bit of everything. And so right now, my position is with Criminal Justice Services, which is a department within the county, and they cover a myriad of things. They're responsible for pretrial, so folks who go in front of a judge and their case hasn't been decided yet, and they're released pretrial before they go on to trial. I work with those folks. Reentry, which is folks who are getting out of prisons and helping them kind of reacclimate back into the community. Drug recovery courts is a part of that, and my section is research and planning. So my actual position is as a grants manager, and Mecklenburg County has received to date over $3 million in grants from the MacArthur Foundation. The MacArthur Foundation is the philanthropic institution that donates tens of millions of dollars to a lot of different things, but criminal justice is one of their big ones. And part of the MacArthur Challenge, or part of the MacArthur Foundation, is they are funding what's called the Safety and Justice Challenge. And I have, there's a PowerPoint that we're gonna send out at the end, and it's got all these different links you can click and read all about those, pretty much everything that I'm talking about. And so the Safety and Justice Challenge is they are choosing counties across the nation to try to help areas lower their jail population without sacrificing any kind of public safety, because we don't want to lower our jail populations and make citizens more at risk for becoming victims of crime. So that is the grant that I'm managing right now. And the Safety and Justice Challenge for Mecklenburg County has resulted in multiple changes. We have managed to do bail reform within the county. We are working on some community engagement pieces, trying to get county members and residents together to talk about different criminal justice challenges and reforms and things that we're trying to do and how those may impact people living in the communities in Mecklenburg County. Part of my duties is overseeing a couple, we call them strategies, a couple different strategies. One of them being a behavioral health component, which encompasses mental illness, homelessness, substance use disorder, different kinds of things that can lead people to go in jail, that we feel that there are better interventions that are more effective, they're more cost efficient, they're just better ways to go about it. Another section that we are working with is our community engagement and we call it our RED work, R-E-D. It's our racial and ethnic disparities. So racial and ethnic disparities are found at every single decision point in the criminal justice system everywhere, not Mecklenburg County, not just the South, not just this half of the, but across the country. You can find them at every decision point. And decision points are the decision to arrest, the decision to book someone into the jail, the decision when they go in front of a magistrate, whether they're going to be released pre-trial or whether they're going to have to stay in jail until their court date. But sentencing, when people get out, when people are re-entering, if they happen to be on parole, Black and brown people are more likely to have technical parole violations, more likely to be revocated, which means they go in front of a judge and the judge says, all right, that's enough, you have to go back to jail. And these disparities are disproportionate for the number of Black people within a community compared to the number of Black and brown people who are put into, who have negative outcomes to all of these decisions. And when we study things like this, we use what we call a matched sample. It's a scientifically matched sample. We are choosing one white woman and one Black woman, and they have the same charges, and they have the same criminal history. They have the same family structure. They're married or they're divorced. They're a single parent. These things are matched, I mean, down to the letter, and there are still disproportionate outcomes. And those outcomes fall more heavily on Black people from California to Massachusetts. So what we are working on is, I think I put a link in the PowerPoint. We're working with the Burns Institute, which does, we collect a bunch of data, we pass it on to them. They do a lot of different analysis to try to figure out which decision points those disparities are highest at. And then they come back to us and they say, okay, well, your decisions to book, for every white person that you're booking 5 Black people. And those are scientifically matched samples that there is no reason why that would happen. And the only difference between the two is race. So it's just not something that you can kind of sweep under the rug and say, oh, well, that guy must have done this and this one must have done that. It's not.
I have a question.
Yes.
Shannon. So which of these, have you guys already identified which of these decision points shows, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump. So we have preliminary answers. We do need to do another round of analysis just to make sure, because what Mecklenburg County is committed to is making sure that we're doing data-driven work, which means we are not saying, okay, we're going to try this and there's no evidence behind it working, there's no data behind this. So we are going to do another level. Right now, where it seems to be most prevalent is at our booking decisions to book. So that is, that falls under law enforcement. And then decisions to release or detain, which more often than not falls under the criminal magistrate. So that's a courts issue. So we have incredible people with CMPD that we've been working with. This is a, I mean, it's a huge grant. So we have a large group of people that work with us to kind of work everything through. So we have great people at CMPD. We have great judges that are working with us to try to get to the bottom of it, to which decision points are actually we find the most disparities, and then to try to find the appropriate interventions, like what can we change to do that.
Thank you for that. Will these results be made public?
I would imagine you can go, I'm sorry, excuse me. I believe I have a link that will send you to the Safety and Justice Challenge. If you go on the internet and you Google Mecklenburg County Criminal Justice Services, there's tabs all along the side. The Safety and Justice Challenge tab will be on there. And then once you get on there, scroll down, I think there's 2 links. One of them should link to the implicit bias training, which we've been creating over the past 3 years, which just went live over the summer. And anyone can take that. Any citizen can go ahead and take that. And then underneath, I believe it will be our Burns Institute data. So I think that is already made public, and if not, it will. There's also under the CJS website, there's research and planning, and there's all different kinds of reports under there too that anyone can look through. Sorry, I have to have this or I will talk for 9.5 years. So, down here. So I think what I always want to point out for when I talk about criminal justice is that we need to realize that everyone who's in jail and everyone who is in prison is not who we think that it is. Looking nationally, roughly 11 million people a year are arrested, and over 85% of them are arrested for low-level misdemeanors. So these are not violent felons. These are not, murderers and things like that. The United States has added something upwards of 4,000 laws in the past 30 years. And a lot of them are criminalization of behavior that does not need to be criminalized. You have, I was working today, we have a homeless initiative, so I was working on that today, so that's kind of stuck in my head. But there's laws against camping on city property. There's laws against laying down on a sidewalk or a park bench or things like that, and laws against panhandling. Yes, and some of those are nuisances, and we have to figure out something to do with those, but they don't need to be arrested and then put into the criminal justice system, especially considering how much it costs. And to realize that there's such a huge history that has resulted in the stations that so many people are in now, and to understand the negative impact that incarceration and policing and court decisions where it says, the bail policy is to do this, but that's not our practice, we do this. That has all negatively disproportionately fallen on Black people. And we have ethnic disparities as well. Mecklenburg County does most of their data deals with Black, white, and Latinx. There are areas where the Native American population is large enough to track. We just simply don't have that. And our incarcerated Native American population is just not large enough for us to analyze to any kind of, statistical significance. So what we are seeing and what we have found, the county did a public perception survey years and years and years ago. And I think one of the most important things to take away from that public perception survey is realizing that violence, whether it be officer initiated or officer warranted, violence in Black communities can very, very often lead people living in those communities to not only not trust, but not call when they need help. And that was one of the biggest things that kept coming up in this public perception survey, is especially after there's an incident of police violence, I'm not going to call the cops. Unless I'm almost dead, I'm not going to call the police. So it's not just having communities be over policed and over surveilled and having violence put upon them, but it's also Black communities that don't receive the safety, they don't receive that protection, protect and serve. And absolutely, and I understand that it's tough on both sides, but I'm just saying that was probably one of the largest things is, listen, now I don't feel protected. So I think that is when we begin our community engagement piece, we'll be having members of the community come together with the members of our committee, which will include people from the public defender's office, people from the courts, people from the district attorney's office, officers from, I know we'll have officers from CMPD. I'm sure we'll have some from the surrounding towns. And that will be a significant portion, is how can we come together? How can we feel protected while also understanding that there's things that need to change? So I think that's one of the biggest things that's on here. Okay. I think I can, if anyone has a question, I'm trying not to go off on a tangent because there's 9,000 things that I want to say, but I'll keep it brief. All right. Okay, so I think what I'll do now then is end with kind of I put them at the end of the slideshow, and it's just a remember, because I think that before I was ever studying or involved in any of this, I had so many misconceptions, it was bananas. So for one thing that we have to realize when we're making sort of criminal justice reforms, I've done a lot of work with prisons and jails, and I think what we need to realize is that 95% of the people who are in prisons and jails right now are going to be released at some point. They're not serving life, they're not on death row. These people are going to be released. And the way that they're treated and the way that they're rehabilitated and the services that they receive and the training that they receive to be able to go out and live a law-abiding life when they get out is extremely important, of the utmost importance. I think when we're talking about prisons and jails is understanding that they are going to get out. So it may not feel right to us to say, listen, you broke the law and now I'm going to give you a class and teach you how to do this, or you did something wrong and now I'm going to reward you for that. It's an emotional response where you say you did something wrong and you need to be punished for it, but to punish creates a less empathetic, a less likely to be socially constrained by rules and laws and social norms and things like that. So we need to put that emotion aside and say, listen, we need to forgive. That's the whole point. It's not our place to judge. It's not our time to say, you did something wrong and I want you to, be accountable for it. Well, they're away, they've lost their liberty. And then while they're there, you show them the right path, kind of thing. Over half of the people who are in both prisons and jails, in fact, in jail, the proportion is much larger. Over half have a mental health issue. They have a substance use issue. Many are homeless. There are women in particular. It's astronomical. It's over 80% of women who are in jails and prisons have a history of sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence. And that needs to be treated. There needs to be an intervention there. They're obviously taking what happened and reacting to it improperly. So there needs to be something in place to teach how to react properly. There are racial disparities at every single decision point in the criminal justice system, from C to shining C. every single decision point, every single criminal justice system, federal, national, state, counties, little, places in deeply rural areas, there are racial disparities at every single one, and science cannot explain it. So the only thing that can explain it is bias. It's not possible. It's not statistically possible for this to be Black people commit crime more, so they're in jail more. It's not. The numbers don't match up. Not anywhere even close.
Can I ask you? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead, because I'm going to go on a different thing. So you go.
I was going to ask about your input on mental health emergency personnel.
Yes. So mental health, CMPD and I mean like last week, is launching a new initiative. And they are, I think they called it Safe Outcomes. Now, Safe Outcomes, what you can do is if you have in your home, either you or someone in your family or someone who resides in your home who has a mental illness, who has any sort of cognitive functioning issue that makes certain things difficult for them, or there may be certain things that they don't understand. If you have an elderly parent who suffers from dementia or Alzheimer's or all these different things, you can call, or I think you can definitely call, but you can also go online, and I've put the link in that PowerPoint that we'll pass out. And it sounds a little institutional, but you register them and you say, listen, there's someone in this home who is severely autistic. Loud noises and sirens will terrify him, and he may get violent. And that's on the police dashboard. So if you call 911, or someone calls 911 and says, oh my gosh, this woman's house is on fire, and I've registered my brother, when they come to my house, when the police answer that call, it will come up for them, and they'll say, it'll be flagged, and it'll say, listen, there's an individual in this home that has an issue, and you need to respond accordingly. You need to, if he comes running out of the house, waving his arms and screaming, then and it's protective for police as well, because we can't say that you can never defend yourself. If you feel like your life is in danger, you can't protect yourself. That's not fair. You can't ask someone to do that job, because then no one will want to do that job. And we can't keep saying, here, police officers, we're going to train you for all these different things, but you have to act the same way that this man with 25 years of mental health and behavioral health experience, who has a doctorate, you have to react the same way he does. It's not going to work. It may not be fair, or it may not be right, but it's just not going to work. And that's what the end point is people may not be comfortable with it, they may not like it, but that's the way it is. So what we have to do is we have to change that's the way it is. And CMPD is rolling out this initiative saying, listen, we would love to know. We don't want to hurt people that don't need to be hurt. But if some 6'5" guy comes running out of my house, then I don't want anything to happen. So I think that's truly an amazing thing that they're doing. And that's on the front end. And then if someone is arrested, and then they go in front of the judge, or the magistrate, and they are released, but pending trial, pretrial services right now, as part of the Safety and Justice Challenge, is enhancing their pretrial services. And it's going to include a clinician and a specialized caseworker. And that person is going to work with people with behavioral health needs. It's going to be more intensive programming. There's going to be more contact between the pretrial caseworker and the client. They are going to be able to be connected to services, crisis. It's CRYSYS, crisis, operates, I know they operate throughout the city. I'm not sure, I'm sure they go outside the county or go throughout the county. They're a mobile response team, and you can call them at any time. They're 24 hours a day hotline, call them anytime, and they will respond, because there are times when you're like, I need someone who's trained, and who do we know as regular people who just live in the world? We don't know anybody. So we're like, I'll just call the cops, they'll help. Well, they're not trained to help, or they're trained as little as possible, or not as little as possible, but they're trained, their training doesn't allow it to be extensive in just this one area when they have to be trained for 50 different things. It doesn't work out that way. So that initiative, I think, is absolutely amazing. There's the new Safety and Justice Challenge expansion. And then I think I added on there, I added a ton of like documentaries and little quick videos, because I love documentaries and little quick videos. So they're all on there if you guys want to take a look through. And one of them is called The New Asylums. And it explains why, the history of why there's so many mental health issues, and the only way we have to deal with them is police. So we don't have anything in place right now to have kind of tandem response like police officers with behavioral health specialists, but we are trying to help on the front end, and then also once they get into the system, kind of try to assist as best as we can while we're in there.
Okay. I have another question, and then I want to make sure we have some time for Officer Chris to share his perspective as well.
Yes,
grateful
absolutely.
that he took some time to be with us this evening. So is there anything that you know of that's happening in the Charlotte area around the youth justice system? Or it's probably not a different system, but around young justice, yeah.
So I did add, there is an organization called Race Matters for Juvenile Justice, and I did add a link for that as well. I know a judge who serves with that group, and I know they are doing a ton with trying to push for, what's the word? Reforms, changes, things like that, raise the age. We just recently did raise the age last year or the year before. And they do, they do a lot of work trying to do big systems change. And then if you go to CMPD's website, they have a section that's for community engagement. And on that community engagement page, they have juvenile diversion programs. They have a Cops and Kids program. And it's all, and again, they also have front end where it's like, listen, you know, first time low level misdemeanor offenders, if you're under the age of 18, we can try to divert you to this program. There's some do counseling, behavioral modification counseling, some do different kinds of, I don't know if it's considered community service, but different service things. And then they have, once kids are in the system, and they try to do counseling sessions and things like that, where they get together and they're like, listen, I've seen your life story and exactly what will happen if you stay on this path. So let's try to do it this way. They give them different kinds of conflict resolution tools and all these different kinds of things. So I know that there are both nonprofit organizations that you can go through and look through. And then also there is through the county, you can go right on CMPD's website. And forgive me, but I'm not very familiar with other police departments, but I would imagine, as it's all one county and CMPD is the largest, I would imagine that a lot of the work that CMP does is similar to the work that's done. And it might actually be easier to do in smaller departments because you have a smaller population that you're policing, but I'm not sure. So don't quote me on that.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon.
Okay.
Please stick around. But
yes.
I do want to, first of all, thank Officer Chris for joining us tonight after work. I know your job is not easy. So you probably want to just get home and get comfortable. But thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. And I wanted to start off by asking you about about your background, not your entire life story, but you know, how did you come to the decision that you wanted to be a police officer? You're on mute right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Um, Now I always wanted to go into law enforcement. I wanted to either do either U.S. Marshals or FBI. While I was in school, when I was in school, I wanted to go in the military. So when I graduated high school, I went in the military. Uh, Spent 21 years in the military. Was in the Air Force, and then once I got out of the Air Force, I decided that law enforcement was still one of the goals that I wanted to do when I got out the military. So that's how I started. Um, I like helping people out. Um, I get more satisfaction in helping people out versus taking them to jail. Um, that's part of the job, but um, I like to help people that that I've seen that have been victims. You know, that there was no one there to help them um, in crisis. From someone house being broken into while they're at work, being going to the ATM machine or going to a grocery store or something like that, and being robbed at gunpoint and stuff like that. So um, you know that's I have a passion of helping people out.
Well, thank you for all that you do and for your heart to help people and to put yourself in dangerous and difficult circumstances to do that. And this group of folks have a similar heart. They would like to help people out, and they want to know ways in which they can do that. And I think and I appreciate the fact that you've been doing that specifically at Assurance, being there to be a non-anxious presence, as we say as
Yeah.
pastors, but also as a presence that's there to remind us that we are safe in that. And to remind us that we are protected. This group was formed after the George Floyd shooting to talk
Okay.
about racial injustice and race in general. And so one of the questions that we had to begin our time as a group a couple of months ago now is what was our first experience with race in America? What was kind of that first experience that opened your eyes to the fact that you were a different race than other people? So how might you answer that question if you can think about that?
Um, you, I went to school predominantly that was predominantly white, uh, for the most part. Um, One of my high school years, um, probably 95% white, probably 3% um, uh, blacks, and then the other uh, that 2% Asian or Latino nationalities, other nationalities, but uh, there were some issues because there was my school was kind of unique too because it was a brand new school and it was pulling people from different parts of the county um, for this school, and a lot of the kids, didn't live together growing up, and didn't go to school together growing up until high school, when they formed this new high school. And then when they built this new high school, in a predominantly the better part of the county. I'm originally from New Jersey, so the better part of the county, and then the other kids that lived around there were pulled into that school system. So there were some racial issues there when I was going to school. Um, but that's America, and you know, you're gonna find good and evil in everyone, and I don't care where you go. I was in the military. It's a little bit different overseas, but they still have their issues. But I think the problem that we have in America is that we one we don't have respect for others. You know, regardless of what you see in front of you. You know, we lost that. I mean, I think, just my personal opinion, I think a lot of problems that we have in society today, I think it could be traced back to maybe the 80s, 90s, when they went away from, you know, prayer in school, pledge allegiance in school. When I was going to school, you used to get paddled. You get in trouble, you go down to the principal office, you get paddled. And I turned out fine. Everybody else who's who's my age, turned out fine.
Oops, I think we lost him.
Oh man. That's the struggle with technology, folks.
Yeah.
Hopefully
I think Chris is right, though, because when you got paddled at school, then you got paddled again at home, and you were accountable.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it might be different in other countries, but growing up in Guyana, where I'm from, they're still paddling today, and I vividly remembered being paddled myself. So it is certainly a thing that for sure happens. Hopefully Officer Chris will be able to come back soon. I want to remind you guys, while we're kind of in this space, that you guys can certainly send any questions that you have for Officer Chris as well. I'm planning on just kind of asking him about, like, how has he kind of seen things change since the death of George Floyd, or has he seen things change? I know we also had the situation with Keith Lamont Scott, and just kind of ask him what are some of the things about police officers that he hears that are untrue, because I know that there's got to be a lot of that. I think from a lot of the conversations that I've heard, especially in the media, it seems that people talk as if they know when they don't actually work that position. And also, like, if he has any advice for us as a church. So hopefully he'll be able to join us. But in the meantime, since we still have Shannon here, I'm going to ask you one more question that was sent in. So in general, is there any movement toward restorative justice instead of punitive sentencing?
So, short answer, no.
Okay.
Longer answer is people are trying. People are really trying. And I hope that, I don't think I really thoroughly articulated it, but this is a system. The criminal justice system is a system. It is a long entrenched system. It has 11,000 different, issues. And so it's going to take a while to change. So Mecklenburg County, being a part of the Safety and Justice Challenge, it's a community. We have our own, like, exchange. Everybody talks, and you get people post their the results of all the different work that they're doing in their communities, which is not always the same. It's never the same as what we're doing here. But Mecklenburg County is doing very well. It is, we have a fairly progressive court system. Our police are more transparent than some other counties, not as transparent as others, but more transparent than some. Our probation parole, the head of that is, I mean, just an absolutely phenomenal guy and wants so hard to change things so for the best for his clients. He really is a wonderful man. So we are moving in the right direction. It is just, it's so extremely slow. So restorative justice, there are musings about it throughout CMS. We have, and I've linked on here too, and Lisa and I have spoken about it, but we have an issue in the US. It's the school to prison pipeline. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that, but by having so many school resource officers in school, and it just makes it that much easier to end up in the system. So I know that CMS Schools is working on various ways to do that. The court system is not the same concept, not restorative justice, but they're working on procedural justice, which is just making sure that every single person that comes into the courthouse is respected, whether it's a victim or a defendant or whoever, and that also has different kinds of evidence behind it, showing that it does, while it does slightly make more positive outcomes, it makes people feel more positively about their interactions with the criminal justice system, which I think is just as important. Because if they trust in the system, then they're willing to do what they're supposed to do, so they're not outside the system.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Officer Chris is back. So we totally understand technological difficulties happen all the time, especially at assurance. So I wanted to ask you if what are some of the things that you hear about in the media or from citizens who have no law enforcement experience? What are some of the things that you hear that you wish people could understand better? What are some of those things that you hear that are false, that you think we would be better off if we knew what the truth was? And your mic is muted, just so you know.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, what happened to my video?
We can see you.
Oh, can you? Okay.
Yeah.
What was your question again?
So I was asking, just so that we have a better understanding of law enforcement. There's always stuff in the media about law enforcement. We've seen all the protests and things of that nature. What are some of the things that you feel like are like, what are some of the things that are a part of the narrative of police officers that's false, that you would like to kind of tell us? What are some of the things that you hear in the media that's just false about police officers that you could clear up for us?
Well, I guess one of the things is I don't know any police officer that is trigger happy.
Okay.
Okay. You hear people say, well, why didn't he didn't have to shoot him, or she didn't have to shoot the individual, but not understanding the whole situation. All right. For example, I give you an example, like the incident in Georgia where the guy fell asleep at the I think it was a
Yeah,
McDonald's.
I think it was a
At
Wendy's, but yeah, I know what you're
Wendy's,
talking about.
okay, at a Wendy's, and of course the store, the restaurant employees called 911, and the officer responded, and the officer responded, and he was still, in a drive-through. Uh, uh, Doing the investigation, they determined that he was impaired. All right, and then when they attempted to put handcuffs on him, then he started resisting. Okay, so he started resisting. Uh, there's two officers there. Uh, so he takes the taser from the officer, all right, and then he starts running, trying to get away. Okay, uh, the officer chases after him. Then he turns and then he fires the taser at the officer. All right, and then the officer returns fire with the weapon. You know, so everyone gets all up in arms and go berserk, and then saying, well, the guy had a taser and the officer used a lethal weapon, a gun, to shoot him. You know, and the whole narrative that you hear in the media and everyone else was saying, well, the officer didn't have a justification to fire his weapon at the guy because the guy had a taser on, but not realizing that a taser can kill you. All right. Um, Taser Corporation, they changed their name. It's Exion, but it used to be called Taser Corporation, but they changed the name. When tasers first came out, it was promoted as to society and to law enforcement community as a non-lethal weapon. All right. Taser ended up getting sued in court from families who had loved ones who died as a result from police officer using taser on them. All right. So Taser had to go back and change their marketing and the way they presented their product. It's not called uh non-lethal weapon. It's called less lethal. All right. Big difference. All right. So they changed it to less lethal because they realized, and they were losing in court, getting sued, but people were dying from getting tased. It's a small percentage. We had some here in Charlotte since I've been a police officer that died from officers using a taser on them. All right, and one of those things, um, let me say, and one of the things that they determine that is the underlying health condition. You know, we don't know that when we pull the trigger. No one knows that. I don't know what your health condition is. All right. I'm using something that's less lethal, and I'm trying not to possibly end your life and stop the aggression that you're doing. But I can't say 100% for sure that you're not going to die from a taser, because people have died from a taser. So people were getting up in arms. The media was going berserk. They saw rioting down there in Georgia and elsewhere because they felt that the officers overreacted and fired a weapon at them, not realizing that a taser can kill you. Depending on if you have any underlying health conditions, and then how many times you get tased in that process. Our tasers, they set it up where once we pull the trigger, you're gonna get 5 minutes of joy. Now, I'm sorry, 5 seconds of joy. Excuse me, not 5 minutes. That'd be crazy. 5 seconds of joy. Right? You're gonna get 5 seconds of joy, and then it recycles. Then we have to pull the trigger again. Then you're gonna go for another 5 seconds. And and then if you're still resisting, we're supposed to switch and then try something else. All right, because statistically shows that over time, if you keep tasing someone, there's a good possibility that it's not going to end well for them. if they're still resisting. But I think our our, our society has gone so far in the wrong direction, as far as holding people accountable, and I'm not saying all officers are good. That'd be naive to sit up here and say that. I think the majority of officers, a good percentage, 90-something% of officers out there doing the right thing, trying to do the best for society and for the community that they serve. There's a small percentage that shouldn't be police officers, but again, you're picking from an imperfect gene pool. You're going to have that regardless. I think police departments do a good a good vetting system, and have things in place to try to catch those that made it through the process, but showing that they shouldn't be police officers. And I I think you'll see, if you notice, a lot of police departments will have a lot of prior military as law enforcement, and that is done by a reason, because as as veterans, you've been exposed to other nationalities, which is huge if you're going to be a police officer. You got to know how to talk to people, and you have to be comfortable with other people that are not that don't look like you, and and not going to overreact uh, based on your bias. But a lot of police departments will go out their way to hire and look for veterans because they know veterans have been exposed to that while they were in the military. And in addition to that, you have a history that that the police departments can go back and look at. They can. You don't know how this 21-year-old is going to be versus this 28-year-old, 30-year-old person that been in the military. They can go back and do an extensive background on that person. But a person who just got out of high school, just graduated college or whatever, you don't know what type of person that individual is going to be as a police officer.
Okay.
So,
Officer Chris, we've got, it's 8 o'clock.
uh-huh.
And these folks have been with me since 7. But I wanted to ask you one more quick question before we wrap up tonight. How can we help the police department do their job better? You mentioned one of the things that you feel like is a huge problem is respect. But how can we as a church or we as citizens help our police officers do their job better?
As a church, I think the way that you can help is getting those families that are you know that are on the edge, that probably don't attend church. I'm just making that assumption, but it starts at home. Uh, you can throw all the money in the world at it. The problem that we have starts at home. It's not going to be. It's not going to be. It's not going to be solved by who's the president. It's not going to be solved who's the governor, who's the mayor. It all starts at home, and getting that home structure sound will solve a lot of it. and will help law enforcement, you know, deal with some of the issues. You know, if you have a family that's out here struggling, and there's no positive role model in the house, and you have 14-year and 15-year-olds out here in the wee hours in the morning, you know, with no adult supervision. I mean, there's nothing that our society can do to fix that if they don't address the home structure. I mean, money is not going to solve it. Um, like I said, I don't care who the president is or who the governor is. It's not going to solve it. It starts at home, giving people, showing people there's hope, and there's other ways of, you know, of achieving their goals, and being productive citizens in society. But I know I just think it starts at home. And you have to go into the home and get the home organized before you can see any results that's going to be meaningful.
Thank you, Officer Chris, and thank you, Ms. Shannon. I feel like this is a I feel like this is a conversation that we could have for hours and hours, but I really appreciate you guys taking your time and sharing your perspectives and adding 2 new perspectives to our group. You are certainly invited to join us in this conversation whenever you would like. Our next meeting will be November 17th, Tuesday, November 17th. Unless a large group of people say that that's not going to work for them, but we're planning on Tuesday, November 17th, and we're hoping that will be an in-person meeting. If you guys are okay with that, we can spread out, and we can spread out in either the Connections or the North Lake Sanctuary. I've got some ideas about ways that we could share our perspectives and have conversations. So if you guys are willing to do that, of course, following the rules and the guidelines that Assurance has for social distancing and for to keep everybody safe. But I would love to be able to see everyone in person. So thank you guys again for being so attentive, and for Officer Chris again, and for Shannon to share such great information with us, to share perspectives and statistics and things that we would have never been able to figure out on our own. So thank you so much. I will be emailing you guys this recording, and also Shannon's PowerPoint and stuff like that. So thank you guys again. But I wanted to wrap up with a quick word of prayer. So let's bow our heads and end with a word of prayer. Gracious God, we thank you so much for the ways in which you are opening our eyes and enlightening us with all of this information and about the things that are going on in our community. But you are God above all. You are the one who knows it all and who is watching over all of us. And so, God, we pray that as we continue to grow in this knowledge, we pray that your Holy Spirit continues to guide us and direct us in the ways in which you are calling us to respond to this information, and to respond to the call that you have given to us to be your hands and feet in this community that is certainly hurting from many different perspectives. And so I thank you for this opportunity for us to get together and to share in another sacred conversation. I thank you for the perspectives that were shared tonight, and I pray that you are moving our hearts and motivating our minds to be an active part of the change that we wish to see. But God, we know that the ways in which you have called us to be transformers in this community is all based on your Son, Jesus Christ, and what he has done and what he has continued to call us to do. So we thank you for his sacrifice, and we thank you for all of the love and the grace and the mercy that you've showed us. So God, be with us tonight and every day as we continue to have these conversations, but as we continue to to seek ways to be your hands and feet in our community. And it's in the name and through the power of Jesus Christ I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you guys.
Amen.
Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, for facilitating.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I will try to get this conversation out as soon as I can to you guys, and the information as soon as I can to you guys. And I'll try to get the information about what our next meeting is going to look like out as soon as I can. So thank you guys again. Everybody have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Good night,
Shannon.
everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jesse.
Absolutely.